On this episode, we wish you a Happy New Year. A correction from last week, the district court in Arizona is hosting the Dicamba Lawsuit. Will the Dicamba label hold up? Hear how the predictions from last year turned out, what is predicted for 2021, and the good that has come out of 2020. Joe has some extra corny jokes for us as we close out the year. Let's grow together in 2021.
Hi, this is Joe Mershman. Welcome to Cup of Joe, episode number 22, season 3. Today, Tommy's not with us, but we have Turk and we have Ben, and this is kind of our end of the year type episode where we talk about the good things that happened this year, as well as make some predictions. But before we go into that, we want to talk about the news this week. And Turk, I'm going to lead off with you this time.
We want to talk about the Dicamba lawsuit that has been filed. We initially said that it was going to be filed with the Ninth Circuit Court, which it was. I think what happened was the Ninth Circuit Court says because this is a new registration, this isn't an appeal, this isn't anything else, you have to start over in a lower court, which they did. They filed on the 23rd, December 23rd, with the Arizona District Court, and it'll have to go through there. So it delays the eventual decision to the Ninth Circuit Court because it will be appealed regardless of whatever decision the court makes, whether it's for or against. It's going to be appealed by one or the other to the Ninth Circuit Court. They will hear it, and again, they will make a ruling on it. The difference with this registration is that it is a unconditional registration. The original registration for Dicamba was a conditional registration, which meant the registration could be changed and updated as needed. This one's unconditional, the registration that they come out with this year for Dicamba products or herbicides. And so that means that it can't be changed. And so it will have to be heard on its merits. They have to start all over with the burden of proof on that the product works, does what they say it does, and so that brings to another point. There wasn't a comment period done, which has to be done on any new herbicide that's approved. That you have to look at this as a brand new because the other one was completely vacated. So they didn't do that. So that alone means that it's an illegal registration.
Well, it's going to definitely put some holes in it. That's going to potentially make it a difficult approval. In other words, this whole process. What do you think, Turk? I mean, the odds are that it goes through the Arizona court, goes to the Ninth Circuit, goes through all these different processes. It's going to take time, no question about it. But at the end of the day, is there going to be a registration? Is this registration going to hold up for Dicamba, in your opinion?
Absolutely not. This registration is the appeal or the decision to file against this is a slam dunk for the plaintiffs. There's more problems with this registration than there was with the first one, and so it's not a matter of if it's going to be vacated, the new registration. It's a matter of when. So basically, anybody that's trying to make that decision right now on whether they're going to plant Dicamba soybeans or not really is betting on how long this is going to take to go through the courts. That's what they're betting on, because it will be vacated in the end, because this registration absolutely will not stand as is.
Yeah, just the fact they didn't have the 30-day comment period is enough to push it back out again. So we'll just have to stay tuned. We don't ever know exactly how it's going to turn out, but if it follows the traditional pattern of everything that we've been involved with, traits and whatnot, that registration is going to be under tough scrutiny. So it's good to know. If I was a Dicamba farmer, I'd be definitely make sure I got a plan B, because it could be deja vu. It could happen again right at spray time again.
It absolutely could, because I think it will go through the first court, lower court, quicker than the old one did, because there isn't a whole lot of information. And obviously, they can be delayed and strung out a little bit, but there's all kinds of information that will already in the system with the Bader lawsuit and everything else and the drift. Everything that we've got up so far can be used in this new debate with the judges, and I'm sure it will be. So that's why it's going to get appealed to the Ninth Circuit Court fairly quickly.
And that brings us back to the other topic we talked about a week ago, that there was going to be a website for any farmers that did receive dicamba damage over the last few years that you can make a claim. That link is going to be available now on Cup of Joe. It is up now, so it's a formal process. You know, it's not a court process. Monsanto Bayer has put a fund together of several $300 million, a lot of money, and they're saying, hey, here's a pool of money. You know, make your claims, and in some process they'll go through a process to pay those out. So it's not like you have to win a court battle to get the money. It's already, the money's sitting in a pot, and you just got to make a claim. And obviously you got to come up with factual, documented results. So that's in place now. So, and there's 150 days, I think Tommy said last week.
Into May, they have to be filed by the end of May. So that I went on the site, and I didn't click on the link to start a claim, but that's how easy it is. Open up the site, scroll down, start a claim. That's what you got to do.
Well, enough about dicamba. Let's get into the real meat and potatoes of this Cup of Joe session, and that's predictions. And one of the things I always like to review how we did last year. Okay, in other words, and Turk, on December 28, 2019, you predicted at some point during the 2020 season you would be able to sell $11 soybeans and $4.50 corn. And what we think, I'm guessing beans were probably in the $8 range. I mean, $8.50.
About 8.5.
8.5. So you hit that prediction quite easily. Now, unfortunately,
I don't know about easily, Joe.
Well, it came true. Came true. I just didn't buy enough on the board. That's the only problem for me.
That is what I don't want people to do.
Anyhow, so I would give you 5 stars for your prediction. I can't wait to hear this year's prediction. Ben, you talked about the price of seed being at a new level last year. And only the most efficient seed companies are going to be able to operate in the future. And I think you hit that one right on. I mean, that very true that there's a new competitive level, new competition out there, and the price of soybeans, are extremely very, very competitive right now. And Tommy, he hit pretty good. He predicted Elite 27 would get a label, which it did. Unfortunately, the label was not for Iowa or not for Illinois and 6 counties in Missouri, so really not much of a label at all. But he did predict the EPA would give a label to Elite 27, which is the balance piece for LLGT 27 soybeans, so you can apply it as a pre-emerge. So give Tommy a plus on that one. He also said that Mershman Seeds is going to emerge as a leader in this industry, and I think we're heading that way. I don't know if we're exactly there yet, but we're so I'd give him a plus on that one. And then the last one he predicted is Trump would stay in office. Now, I don't know exactly. I wish he was here to explain that. He may not leave office, but and there's still some more things going on here next week to see how that turns out. So that one's still in limbo yet. Okay.
For 2020, he was right.
He was right. He's still in office in 2020. And I predicted we'd have an early spring, because I said we were in a cold, warm cycle, and that's kind of how spring was. We had a kind of a warm area, and then we went cold, and then we went back to warm. So I'm going to give me at least 3 stars. That I was pretty close on that, because it was definitely earlier than 2019, because I was getting calls last spring, hey, Joe, where's this early spring? And I said, I was comparing it to 2019, and we were definitely earlier than 2019. If you remember, 2019 was the year it was so wet, and then we couldn't get things planted. So anyhow, overall, I'd say we, if you listen to Cup of Joe and our predictions, we did pretty good, not bad. And then on top of it, Joe Berkey, and with his onion test, Joe Berkey's our area sales manager in Strang, Nebraska, and south of York there, and he does an onion test every New Year's Eve. And that's where he takes 6 onions, he cuts them in half, cores out the centers, puts them either on the north wall or the south wall, and then he puts a tablespoon of salt in each one, and then does that at midnight. And then at 6 a.m. the next morning, you go and you read it from east to west. So east, the first one is January, second one is February, March, and I just checked with Joe, and I said, well, how accurate was your onion forecast? And he says, well, I got July and August mixed up. In other words, those 2 months did not fall exactly right. In other words, one was drier and one was wetter. But he says, otherwise, the rest of the year, it was perfect. So, we've been watching Joe's onion test. It's actually his dad, Jim's, that introduced it to us many, many years ago. And we found it to be as accurate as any long-term forecast we've ever seen. In fact, maybe even more accurate. So next week we'll give you the results of the onion test, and we're encouraging our sales managers, area sales managers, also do it. So we'll see how it comes out. But the wetter the onion is, the wetter the month will be. The drier it is, the drier it is. And you just kind of stir that salt around, and you can tell the difference in dryness. So interesting test. So Turk, we're going to lead off with you. What are your predictions for 2021?
I always talk about the opportunity for new crop, and so my prediction for 2021 is farmers will have the opportunity to sell new crop corn for $5, and they'll have the opportunity to sell new crop soybeans for $12. Keep in mind that the price right now for both of those crops is about $4.30 for corn and $10.60, $10.70 for soybeans. So
I got to call my broker.
Well, right now, interestingly enough, we did break the $13. We had beans in the teens the last week of December. So
well, I agree with you, Turk. We're going to have to reward these prices. It's all up to South America. I saw one article. You always see articles of the extremes, and one article was about a week ago. It said if it stays dry in Brazil and Argentina, we could see beans as high as $18. Mm-hmm. Well, I wouldn't hold my breath, but that would be not a good thing for soybean farmers, just from the standpoint of people learn how to do without beans.
So if everybody remembers the last time we had beans at $17 or whatever that number was, you couldn't sell them. It didn't make any difference what was on the board because you couldn't sell them. Nobody would buy them at that price.
Yeah.
So
it's better to have a steady pull than to have these extremes. And they always say the cure for low prices is low prices. The cure for high prices is high prices. So there's volatility is definitely going to be what we're going to have to watch, because once we get a big rainstorm down there, you're going to see beans tumble tremendously. Or if it stays dry, you're going to see them keep going up. So it's kind of a game of chicken, ain't it, Ben?
Very much so.
Who's going to blink first,
Very much so.
Anything else, Turk, that you want to predict?
no, that'll cover me.
Okay, I wrote everything down, and we'll review the episode a year from now, and we'll see how close you were. Ben, what do you think?
I think my prediction for 2021 is it will be the year for increased crop inputs. I think guys are learning a lot. I think there's a lot of new technologies out. I think there's a lot of farmers are going to be making tweaks to their plan. I think fungicide will be the number one focus on as growers look towards getting higher yields. We had a really good fungicide year. Some guys had been applying fungicides twice, and seeing a return on investment from that standpoint. But the single fungicide application, whether it be a dual mode of action or a triple mode of action on your fungicide, was a very, very healthy return on investment this year. So I believe that the suppliers of fungicide are going to have a phenomenal year moving into 2021. So I think there's going to be lots of tweaking. It happens every year, but I think with the prices being what they are, there's going to be some definite increase on crop input.
So at the prices I just predicted, it is a very good return on investment.
Absolutely. Yeah, when you get 8, 9, 10 bushel an acre returns on fungicide, yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah, they'll invest more to make more, and that's the name of the game right now.
Yep.
Anything else, Ben?
That's my prediction.
I actually have two predictions, and one of them is that we're going to see higher input costs and as commodity prices go up. You're going to see marginal ground come into play, more acres come into play, and then the whole cycle of overproduction starts again. But that's going to create strong demand for phosphate and potash. We're going to see, stronger input prices on everything that we have. In other words, we're kind of in a little bit of a vacuum right now that we've got basically a lot of things based on last year's costs, but I think we're going to see input costs go up. So anything a farmer can do to lock down their costs right now is really a smart thing to do, because they're going to do nothing but go higher as to follow these commodity prices, which traditionally they do. The other thing too is I am going to predict another early spring, and the reason why is because we're pretty dry. I mean, so when we usually have a dry fall and we go into winter a little bit dry. I know we're getting a little bit of snow right now, a little bit more snow in Iowa and as you go north, but for the most part, subsoil moistures are fairly dry, so that sets up things for early spring. And then if we don't get timely rains, who knows what's going to happen. But I'm optimistic we'll get the rain. But anyhow, we're going to get in early, so get your seed early, get it in place, ready to go. Okay, that wraps us up on what we're predicting. But before we leave this year, let's talk about some of the good things that happened in 2020. Turk, we'll start off with you.
Some of the good things, in my opinion, is the RNA technology for this new vaccine. Where we've talked about RNA technology on the show in the past when we were talking about herbicide resistance and the ability for RNA technology to potentially bring new herbicides to the market that would make Roundup very effective again, and any other herbicide. So that technology is in use with these new vaccines, and I think it's going to create more opportunity for RNA moving forward. So RNA technology in this new vaccine was a tremendous good thing about 2020. I also had on my list of what's good is profitable corn and soybean prices for corn, soybean, and wheat prices for all of our farmers for the first time in several years. So that was a positive, and I think that will continue for a few more years as well with these prices, depending on how high our input costs end up going. But we're in good shape for a while. And then the other thing that I had in here is Saltro for soybeans. For the first time, farmers could use Saltro for for the 2020 crop, and that was a big thing for everybody that had it. Again, it definitely was safe for the crop, increased yields, and so I think those are the really strong positives for 2020.
Ben, do you have any?
I'm going to follow up on the Saltro comment, because with the Saltro, we had limited amount of data on the Saltro coming in. We also had limited amount of data to show the public on the Enlist varieties that we had. So where we were comparing like 2 or 3 varieties in the first trials, we had almost equal representation on Enlist versus Extend this year. So we had lots of Enlist data, and I think one of the great things that we did is we can now prove without any doubt that Enlist soybeans, that there is no yield drag associated with that product. So we had the most plots we've ever had come into our office this year. We have an awesome yield book that shows all of our high yielding Enlist E3 soybeans, and we dispelled that yield drag comment. So I think it's really positive that we have all these platforms available of high yielding soybeans.
Yeah, great products for our farmers. One of the things that I'm going to talk about as a positive for 2020 is we learned how to do business a different way. And a lot of our suppliers now, we have certain folks that basically cover multiple states, and we maybe get together 2 or 3 times a year. Now, because of Zoom meetings and teleconference type meetings, we're able to do business all over without leaving our offices now, or even leaving our homes. So we've learned how to do business more efficiently, and time is the limiting factor that we have in everybody's life, and business has really changed because of this. So now it's commonplace to have a TV screen and a camera, and we can communicate with folks, some of the sharpest folks in the country, face to face without leaving the office. So we've learned a better way to do business in a more efficient way, and that's a real big positive, and it's something that came from something so negative. You know, the fact that we couldn't intermingle with each other.
On that note, Joe, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the Land Expo that's coming up here the first part of January, and that it is going to be virtual, and that people can sign up and then hear some of the best speakers in the country talk at that expo. So I'm sure we'll put up that link.
Yeah, we'll put up that link. And if you're in agriculture or in business, Steve Brewer's meeting that he puts on in Des Moines, you know, and I think it's been 12 or 13 years that he's had. He brings together some of the best speakers to stretch your mind and look over the next horizon, the next hill, and see what's coming. And we won't miss it. I mean, we'll be there virtually and listening to the speakers. And we encourage any of you, and I think you can join that meeting. It's a 1-day meeting for $100, right?
I believe that's what it is right now.
So I mean, so we'll put the link up there and check out the speakers. And what I like about it is, you know, there's some speakers up there that we listen to that we don't like to hear or we disagree with, but they are predicting what's going to happen, particularly on the East Coast and West Coast, which affects farming and agriculture. So it's not just about land and investing in land. It is about the economy and also the political atmosphere that we're in. There's some folks that are going to be speaking that I'm real anxious to see what they say, what's really going on in Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. So that's a great point. That's coming up January 12th. So we'll put a link to that. Check it out. You might find that it's the best $100 and best day that you could possibly invest in looking towards the future. Yep. So let's finish up the year with some New Year's jokes. So I'm going to give you a bonus this year. We're going to give you 4. Okay. Let's start out with they are supposed to be corny jokes. Keep that in mind. What is a corn's favorite holiday? New Year's Eve. Okay?
Yep.
They're going to get better. Now, I wanted to tell you, this is going to be the case for a lot of people. They're going to stay up late this New Year's Eve, not to ring in the new year, but to make sure this one leaves.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, that's for sure.
Now, a year ago, Turk, I made a resolution I was going to lose 15 pounds. Mm-hmm. I only got 20 more to go.
Okay.
Okay. And this one here might relate to a few people. A man who had too much to drink decides to walk home on New Year's Eve. A policeman stopped the man and asked where he was going. The man says, "I'm on my way to a lecture." And the policeman said, "What? Who gives lectures on New Year's Eve?" The man answered, "My wife."
Been there, done that.
That might relate to a few folks, but anyhow, we'll leave it at that. So again, thank you for your past year's business. We greatly appreciate it. It's been a real privilege working with many of you. And if those of you that haven't tried Merchman Seeds, we encourage you to try us this year, find out what it's like. We work very hard to give you innovation and good service and high quality products. But until next year, we'll see you next week. So long.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.